Hey, everybody. Welcome to this recording. We've got a couple other participants who aren't on video, just so you know. So everyone's welcome to just jump in and talk. This recording is basically context. Context for what? Context for the summary that we're going to give about INC23 in Texas, which will be the next video that we're going to record. And then there'll be a third video that we're going to record, which is going to be a concise version of the second video. So this video is not going to be concise, nor will the second one. The third one will be. And so watch at own risk. And just very happy to be here and very happy to be recording again. I haven't actually participated in a recording like this in many weeks, actually, that we've taken a break from the block party. The third video will also be an introduction and welcome to block party number 148, which will be happening tomorrow, Friday, April 14th, 2023, to which everyone is welcome. All right, so what is the context? So everybody, loosen your neckties, take off your clothes, get comfortable, smoke, whatever you need to do. This is just a comfortable conversation, not you, Marco, comfortable conversation about context for the summary that we're going to give about INC23, which will be the second and third videos. So the context, and I'm going to draw pictures here. Sometimes my dad would say, when he was trying to explain something to me and I was being a little stubborn, he'd say, Jamin, do I need to draw pictures? All right. And usually it was for something that was good news. So he wasn't really giving me grief or anything. So anyway, so here's the context. I'll just start drawing pictures and we can go on and off screen share whenever we want. So feel free to request that we get off screen share if you want. Okay, so context. The context for INC23, INC23 stands for Independent National Convention, as different from Democratic National Convention, Republican National Convention. This is the Independent National Convention, INC23, and the context for our INC23 summary, second and third videos in this series, is as follows. And everyone's context is different, and I'm going to share my own thoughts, but feel free to jump in with yours. This is not meant to be definitive or anything like that, but it starts with a core. And this core is either spiritual or, something else, right? And that something else could even be, for example, some sort of an evil void, right? What do I mean by an evil void? Something that's not spiritual, like pursuit of money, greed, ego, whatever, but there is some core, right? It's either healthy and beautiful and wonderful and spiritual, or it's not, or, whatever. So more on that as we go. Surrounding this core, and core of what? Core of, I'm just going to call it human civilization. And human civilization, it's kind of like a fractal, right? This could either be, a local community, it could be national, it could be worldwide, it could be whatever, right? But human civilization. So there's a core, and then there's what I'm going to call a political layer, for lack of a better word. Think of these as layers to an onion. What is politics? It's, humanity agreeing how we're going to figure our stuff out. How are we going to, what are the laws, rules, governance, whatever you want to call it. Both of these, the core and the political layer, provide the foundation for what I'm going to call the economic layer. And this is where rubber kind of starts to meet the road on a day-to-day basis, right? politics, there could be, town hall meetings once a year. There could be national government sessions every third day, whatever. But, it's not like daily, hourly stuff. But economics, it's our daily bread. How are we going to, how are the people basically going to feed, clothe, house, care for, hoard, whatever we're going to do or not do. And this is governed by the political layer, certainly, but not completely determined by it. So it's definitely impacted by the political layer, and it's certainly impacted by the core. The core is like, what, who are we? Why are we here? What is our essence? Is it spiritual? Is it something else? And then beyond the economic, now we get to even more rubber hitting the road with culture, right? Culture is the day by day, minute by minute. Everything that's coming out of my mouth right now is governed by the cultural ocean water in which I swim as a fish. Does that make sense to everybody? And that culture in turn is determined, first and foremost by the core, then by the political, then by the economic, right? And then let me kind of expand this out a little bit. Well, I'll expand it out in a second. The next layer is the ultimate rubber hitting the road, which is action, speech, writing. What do we do day to day? We're here in a Zoom room by choice, right? That's an action that we've all chosen to take in. We're talking here. I'm writing right now. So, I mean, literally everything that's happening second by second is now in this I'll just call it the action layer, right? This is the ultimate rubber hitting the road. And it is influenced by what? You guessed it. It's definitely influenced by the core. It's definitely influenced by the political, by the economic, and by the cultural, right? Okay, so I said I was going to expand this all out, but before I do, let me just pause. And even before I pause, let me just get off screen share. I'll go back on screen share in a second, but let me just kind of come back to you all and say hello and just see if there's any feedback, thoughts, questions, comments. How is this all flowing for you? Do you love it? Do you hate it? Are you confused?
No, kind of, it makes sense, and it goes with, what's been really, I've known over the years, and sometimes, you get away from what sometimes you stray from things you figured out work, is like the spiritual part, the core, the spiritual core is like it's like the operating system for a computer. It guides the logic and how it guides your reason. So it's like the operating system. And if you have a healthy spiritual core, then you've got a healthy operating system, and that should be all you need to get through life. Is a solid spiritual. It just seems anything you do that you don't include a level of spirituality is not done the best it can be done. So I get where that has to be the core for all of us.
Well, I think you're speaking at the level of individual is what I'm hearing, but but also, of course, for the level of civilization, right? What is our core as a civilization?
Yeah, totally.
Well, again, no, I would say like that you're missing one element there, like, and it's an important element, because when you go to the core of, like you're saying, of civilization, right? if you say civilization, what does that mean? Does that mean everybody on the planet or the civilized world on the planet? You know what I mean? Because there are people like civilized is a colonist word in the sense of we have to civilize the heathen savages is what they used to say. Like, so we bring civilization to those who are, you know, considered at the time they were considered savages. We call them indigenous people. No, they at their essence and core is their spirituality and connection with nature, and that comes through through not only being part of the environment, but they're what missing element that you're missing is the inquiry, and inquiry is another word for inquiry is science, like the scientific inquiry. So you're missing that element, like outside of the spiritual core. I don't think politics comes for. Well, it's a close call between politics and scientific inquiry, because from the dawn of time, we can see like now, and archaeology proves like that from the dawn of time, right, going back to the oldest of the Homo sapiens species, we say Neanderthal, whatever. They always thought that they were dumb ape-like humanoids, we say, because they made that decision on the skeletal frame that they found first in the French caves, because it was hunched over and looked like ape-like, but turned out to be the skeletal frame of a 70-year-old man riddled in arthritis, and it proved in itself that he was cared for, and that there was a society that cared for each other and looked out for each other and looked out for the elderly. Also, they found graves and grave goods and everything else, which then as well suggested a belief in the afterworld, because they were left leaving grave goods and for the person that passed away. So spirituality definitely came within the construct of political organization is necessary as well for organizing a group of people. So political and spiritual are very close, but scientific inquiry is the one part element you left out. And scientific inquiry has led us to more or less to the situation where we are now, because it's always battled with the spiritual core for dominance. That went on for the last 2,000 years. You know what I mean? Which is right. Like, is it there a God there, or is it all scientifically? You know, can it all be scientifically proven, or is there a God or higher power there? You know, behind it all. That's always been the question: nature or nurture. And we're beginning to believe now, or find out now, that it's both. It's nature and nurture. Scientific inquiry only comes out of that very thing, like in being curious and inquiring into the nature of things, and there is spirituality within the nature of things. So I'm just saying, you have to find.
Beautiful. I'm going to pause for a second. Yeah, James. So yeah, love what you're contributing, and thank you for that. The first thing that you talked about was civilization. I just want to be clear. I'm not talking about, civilized versus uncivilized world. I'm just talking about society. So I probably shouldn't even use the word civilization. So let's just call it human society. And I'm getting some echo, so somebody needs to mute, please. Maybe it's Marco. I don't know. And then as far as science, so here, let me just kind of, expand upon the core a little bit. And I'll just go ahead and screen share here so you can see what I'm doing. And James, please keep jumping in and adding to what we're talking about here. But so core, let me just expand out the core here a little bit. So we definitely have spiritual, or, I'll just put spiritual or substitute, like, for example, the pursuit of wealth, accumulation, hoarding, I would say, is a substitute for the spiritual. I'll get more into that later. We also have, I'll just say, science and inquiry. I'll say there's also philosophy slash, beliefs, values, things like that. So there's this whole realm. This is I'll just call it, the realm of the core, right? Which is really the driver, right? Why do we do anything? Why, how do we think about ourselves, each other? Who are we? Why are we here as a species? All this is the realm of the core, I would call it. Does anyone have any bullets to add to this list within the realm of the core? Okay. James, are you comfortable with this short list of elements within the realm of the core?
Yeah, sure. No, I mean, I'm comfortable with the way you're going anyway. You were just saying jump in, so I was just saying left out science and scientific inquiry. So yeah, that's good. It is, they are kind of basic as the essences of the core of if you're considering it globally anyway.
Okay. Very good. So then, so the core basically is all of our beliefs and values and just what is really ultimately the driver of who we are, whether as individuals or all the way up to society as a whole. And here's where I kind of said, okay, you don't like civilization, great, let's call it society. It's a fractal, so it could be just a local community, local village of a couple hundred people, all the way up to the world itself, right? And this whole structure from core and layers and all that will then look different depending on what element or elements of the fractal you're talking about, right? That's how it's occurring to me. And I really want this to be a co-created context. All of us are jumping in and co-creating this context. So just jump in with any thoughts, okay? Okay. So I wanted to sort of expand this out a little bit. There's a couple of ways I want to expand it out. First of all is I'm just going to, so if this whole multi-layered thing, core, layers, let me kind of rotate that on its side. So you have core, layers, right? Core, politics, economics, culture, action, right? Now consider this kind of turned on its side. Think of it kind of like like a coin or something, right? That's now turned on its side. Now consider if we add the time dimension to that. So again, here's the coin on its side, and now consider time going this way, right? And now we enter the realm of, evolution and history and all that. I'm not even going to count the layers anymore. Just think of it like, well, we know what we're talking about. Okay. So if time is going this way, then, all these things are evolving. The core is evolving, or is it? Well, how could it not evolve, right? Beliefs change as conditions change. I mean, like the world wars, for example, were kind of an end of innocence and a paradigm shift for the whole world. My goodness, could people actually be so horrible to each other? The answer is yes. All right, what does that mean? How do we deal with that? You know, politics, there are revolutions, French Revolution, Russian Revolution, right? Blah, blah, blah. American Revolution. Cultural revolutions. Well, you know, that definitely influences politics and it influences culture. Here, I might as well name these. So you have core, political, economic, cultural, and action. So everything is changing so all the time. And so the action layer at the very external, what is the evolution of the action layer over time? It's history. It's what actually happened, right? And then, you know, historians go back and make inferences and try to figure out, you know, what was the culture like at that, you know, over the course of time, right? And you could say, well, you know, just read the books and periodicals and speeches and everything else. Right, but then how do you interpret those how do you interpret those words? All words have a cultural context and an economic context and a political and right? All right, so that's one way that I kind of want to expand this out, is with the time factor. There's another way that I want to expand this out, which is the kind of at the level of individual, right, all the way to, you know, society level. Okay, so at the individual level, right, different people have a different core, right? And different people have different, you know, political beliefs. But whatever your political beliefs, we all are born into a specific political system and a specific economic system and a specific cultural system, right? And we're born into a family where actions are taken and those have meanings and all that. And so just consider that each individual is of course different and unique and special and all that, and sovereign, but we also live within a family, a community, a society, etc. So I'm going to go straight to a particular view of a lot of individuals in the world, which is that their core, right, is a core of, I'm just going to call it for what it is, hoarding. Their core is hoarding. Your prime directive: get up in the morning, work, build a business, make money, sell stuff, make stuff, sell stuff, steal stuff, mine stuff, chop stuff down, and take the wood that you derive from chopping down living trees, take it to market and sell it, make money, right? Hoarding, money, ego, right? And well, it's not just ego, it's survival. I'm trying to survive here. Okay, well, survival, but whose survival? Survival of the individual. And the individuals within a family, for example, right? Let's face it, that is kind of the default core in today's world. Now, on top of that, you can add other things like religion, philosophy, whatever else, but the bottom line driver of certainly most of what I'll call the developed world. And I hate that term, but everybody knows what I mean when I say it, and that's why I use it, is hoarding, accumulation, the accumulation of wealth, right? Now, and it's this focus on the individual, right? And to a very large degree, it's a focus on money, because money becomes the vehicle of hoarding, right? It's the currency with which you can buy anything you want to buy, right? Let me just go off screen share here so we can look at each other and contemplate this for a second. Any thoughts, any reactions, questions, comments, etc.?
No, I would say carry on. I'm getting what you're saying, so I'll just
Okay.
keep going.
Okay, great, thank you. So I took some notes about all this last night, and because obviously there is an alternative to living and operating as a society with this as its core. And let me just kind of speak to this right now, and then we can draw pictures as we need. But you know, obviously money is this made up thing, right? It's not a real thing, it's a made up thing, and we all, you know, buy into whatever the collective meaning of that money is. And I'm going to propose a definition of money as follows. Money, it's only good for buying stuff, right? Buying, owning, and utilizing stuff, right? And that stuff, so that money, so the stuff to be able to be traded, right, bought and sold, it first has to be either killed or enslaved, right? Nobody buys a free jackrabbit that's out there in the wild running around, right? Hey, Marco, can I buy that jackrabbit off of you? You said that you own it, right? Can I buy it? No, that never happens. Oh, a cow that's been enslaved. Okay, now we're talking. All right, how much for these 100 head of cattle? Right, boy, I'm gonna buy that. What? Either because I want to, you know, harness these animals up to pull a plow, or I want to kill them and sell their meat, you know. But I'm, you know, this ownership, it's either to kill it or to enslave it, right? You know, you know, people chop down trees and then sell the wood for money. They killed the tree to be able to use that wood for something. So in order to be monetized, it's either killed or enslaved. And so money becomes units of an ecosystem that has been killed or monetized. And you know, when we were all just wild and free and there was no money and there was no barter and trade, we were just hunter-gatherers, right? We were part of nature. It was only after we separated ourselves from nature and started killing and enslaving that money even became relevant, right? So I'm kind of bouncing around a little bit here, so bear with me and please jump in. Let's make this a co-created conversation. But first, let me just pause for a second. All right, we're back recording. Franco has just given me some feedback there, which I really appreciate. You know, we don't value, there's no monetary value to a wild jackrabbit that's out there running around, right? It's not, you know, there's no dollar value that can be put on it. And because of that, in this system with the current core that we have, that's all about money and hoarding, not all about it, but I'll say, you know, if not mostly about it, then you know, anyway, it's really hard to break this down because a lot of this is an invisible core. You know, people will say, oh, well, I believe in this and this and this. Well, what are our actions all about? What are people doing all the time? Working, right? Working, hoarding, trading, doing commerce. And meanwhile, you know, very few of us care about the jackrabbit because it doesn't have value. It doesn't map to our value, what we value and assign value to. So I was kind of doing some sketches late last night. Let me just show. This is not the most efficient way, but I basically started to break it down and say, what's the scope of the optimization that we're optimizing for, that people are trying to optimize for? The scope is the individual, and specifically the wealth of the individual. People are out hoarding, trying to make money. The metric of optimization is money, which are units of ecosystem that are killed, enslaved, and monetized and tradable, right? And at the core, we have separation, a belief in separation, a belief that we're separate from each other, right? And domination. Each individual is seeking to dominate, own, and control to the point of death, enslavement, and consumption of life, right? What's an alternative to this core and to the scope of optimization, to the metric of optimization? Let's just start with those three things: the core, the scope of optimization, and the metric of optimization. Here's an alternative to the whole money-centric, individual-centric, domination-centric. What if the core were unity, care for all life, all people and all life, and liberation from this old, obsolete, omnicidal system of separation, domination, and consumption? Well, if that were the core, what would the scope of the optimization be? The scope would be, drum roll, the whole world. So from the individual to the whole world, right? And you know, the entire planet, the wellness of the entire planet, the preservation of life on the entire planet, you know, life continuing, ecosystems flourishing, an end to extinction, and an end to the destruction of the planet, and actually a rebounding of life. And what would be the metric of optimization? The metric of optimization would no longer be money, which is a measure of, you know, ecosystem that has been, you know, killed, enslaved, monetized, and traded. But the metric of optimization would be love and care and compassion and the extent, the amount, the depth of ecosystem health and the health and wellness of all life, right? I mean, it sounds like a dream. It is a dream at this point, because the reality that we're living in is this hell of this kind of cult of the individual and accumulation, where there's death all around, but we don't even notice necessarily the death of the jackrabbit because it's not valued, it's not measured, right? And so I wanted to put that out there, and then I'm going to draw some pictures here that kind of bring this into focus. But first, I'm going to pause for a second, see if there's questions or comments.
No, I don't, there's no questions or comments, and I get I get what you're saying, like, so I would say carry on while you're on the floor.
Great, thanks, James. I'll go on and share a picture now that I'm going to draw. And at first you're going to say, what's this all about? And then you'll see what I'm doing. So I'm drawing it kind of as this big cylinder, right? And at first, you know, let's just say 50,000 years ago, when the world was just this place just full of life, you know, it was all, I'm just going to say, represented by the heart. It was a whole world, you know, a world just full of life and abundance and ecosystems and everything. And yeah, there's a few naked humans running around hunting, gathering, but we were part of nature. We were part of the garden, right? And then what happened? What happened was, you know, somewhere in Mesopotamia or something like that, something started to creep in to this cylinder that was still 99% life. And what started to creep in was this little sliver of it that had a different core. You know, this core of you know, money and hoarding and the individual and, you know, livestock and totalitarian agriculture, where you decimate everything and plant monoculture, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And at first it was just a little bit, right? This little sliver of darkness in an otherwise very bright world, right? But then that sliver grew and grew and grew, right, over time. And but still the vast majority of the world was wild and free and full of life. And so, you know, it kind of didn't really matter that much, other than to those ecosystems that had been decimated within this, you know, narrow but growing sliver, right? And you know, here we are today in the modern world, where that sliver has now become the norm. And you know how much wildlife has been decimated, Marco? Do you remember? It's, I don't know, something like
70%.
70%, something like that, of wildlife is gone. So here, this sliver has grown to be the majority of the planet, where with a core, and not just a core, but the politics, economics, and culture, right, is centered around money, which is a proxy for, you know, death, right? As we've been talking about, the killing, the enslavement and or killing of ecosystem, right? Ecosystem just as a general thing, and monetization of all that. And what's really scary is if you slice this, you know, this 70%, you know, what is the driver? The driver is humans. And what you see here is that you have, you know, the wealthiest, you know, approximately 1%, with about a third of the wealth, right? The third of the accumulated death, right? This is 1% of the human population is now, you know, this accumulated death of a third of the planet, or a third of all the accumulated death of the 70%. And yet the core is saying more. All these rich people are upset, for the most part, with very few exceptions, you know, some, you know, heiresses and heirs who, you know, have a different philosophy. Their focus is expansion. They want to expand their portion of the cylinder to get bigger and bigger and bigger, right? And meanwhile, you know, the next 9% that have approximately another third or whatever of the whole, they have the same imperative. They're also trying to expand, right? So imagine each of these sub-cylinders within the bigger cylinder are kind of like these spring-loaded, portions that are just pushing. They want to expand. They want to expand and grow and grow and grow. And of course, the poor people are busy hoarding as best they can, nickels, dimes, pennies, whatever they can hoard. They're trying to expand their wealth. So everyone's trying to expand into each other. And is it any wonder that the remaining wilderness, the remaining nature of the world, right, is just getting consumed faster and faster and faster. And nobody's valuing it. None of these humans are valuing it. So we've had this cancerous core of hoarding, where the scope of the optimization is the individual. Bill Gates wants to increase his wealth, Elon Musk his wealth, down to the poorest beggar. They're give me. They're trying to expand their wealth. And again, what's getting expanded into is the remaining nature getting killed off. So what we are all about is reversing and undoing this, letting nature bounce back, right? And really, getting rid of this horrible cult of death and accumulation of these cancerous humans, and letting nature bounce back. Not getting rid of the humans, just getting rid of the cancerous driver, the cancerous core of humanity. And so with that, I'm just going to pause and invite any comments or questions. All right, I mean, I'm not pausing recording, just pausing talking. So,
Well, I mean,
yeah, go ahead. Yeah, go.
No, but I'm just saying, like, I don't have much of a comment other than to say, like, I could still see where you're going, and I like the way you've broken it down to the core of, like, societal on a global scale, right from global to individual. The core, because of that initial, badness creeping in with a different core, has spread like a cancer basically throughout the planet. Like, I've always, it's like, the analogy. If you look at if you compare the earth with an orange, and if you put an orange on a table for so long, after time, like, mold will take over and destroy it. And I've always compared that analogy, we're the mold. But what drives the mold is the core of what's the core driving the mold, which is us, is definitely the greed, and the want for more. So I like the way you do. I like the way, that's all I've got to say. I like the way you broke it down, because this is a very simple way to break it down for an average person to understand as well. Like, that we had a different core, but now we've been, we're as we're born into this set of circumstances, and unfortunately the set of circumstances that everybody's born into now, at its core, is this greed. Yes, there's still the spiritual core, but that's waning in a lot of people and in a lot of the world, like, because of the fact that this poisonous core has gotten in there. It's like a cancerous core on the spiritual core. So I get where you're going. So yeah, carry on is what I'm saying.
Thank you. Yeah. So if we compare these two possible cores, right? Let's just look at the cores here, because core A is, exactly what we're talking about. It's using death as a death and destruction of, pardon the skull and crossbones, right? It's just using death and destruction as the vehicle for creating this thing called money, right? Which is just units of death and destruction that kill life to make it then articles of commerce. Core B is, basically unity, life, wellness for all, right? Now, how do we achieve all that? Well, that's what INC23 is about. It's what Palenque is about. It's what Kindred Spirits is about. It's about all these good efforts. And a big fundamental theme of INC23 is coming together. We need to unite. We need to unite all these different disparate organizations of humans that are all striving for fundamentally a better world. We need to unite so that a united humanity can affect this transition, right? Because if you transform the core, then it makes it a lot easier to transform the politics, the economics, the culture, right? All layers, and ultimately the action. What do we do? What are we doing? How do we walk the earth? Right now we're walking the earth like this poisonous, cancerous orange, mold spores, just decimating everything in our path. And it looks like we don't have a heck of a lot of time left at the rate at which we're destroying everything. So, INC23 focused on the political. It's like, hey, we need to do this political transition, to this new political layer, right? From politics A to politics B, right? But I think, fundamentally, there was missing, well, it wasn't missing, it was actually a part of it. An important part of it is talking about the core. And nobody was talking more or better about the core than Chief Phil Lane Jr., who gave the opening prayer, the closing prayer, the opening speech, and participated in panels and did a brilliant job. But I'm just, anyway, this is all context for the summary of INC23, which I'm really glad we can point to. And with that, I think I'm pretty complete about the context. And then now we can, if we want, we can shift gears and start the next recording. But let me just see if anyone else has anything more to add about the context.
Oh, I think that pretty well got the context. It's that one more phase, one more tool in the reuniting of humanity as one family.
Yeah, and the reuniting of life as one life, right? Where humanity ascends to its special role as caretaker species, right? Which we have the capability, the knowledge, the tools, the resources, to become, right?
Exactly.
Um,
We have everything we need to step our game up to the next level of Homo Ahimsa.
Exactly. Yeah, beautiful. Now, one last thing I'll say in terms of this context video before, and of course, just feel free to jump in anytime, everyone. But when we talk about things going from being alive and free, this heart realm on the diagrams here, to being dead and or enslaved, and ultimately a form of currency, part of the money, part of the hoarding. I'll just give some examples. So think from alive and free to dead and or enslaved and monetized. Free people to becoming slaves. And not just slaves like back in the 16, 17, 1800s, but economic slaves, wage slaves, for instance. Alive and free animals, going from being alive and free to being livestock or dead meat. Living trees and forests to becoming board feet of lumber used for construction. Stored carbon under the ground becoming exhaust, plastic waste, greenhouse gases, etc. Stored minerals becoming products that then break down and become trash floating in the oceans and contamination. Healthy ecosystems going from alive and free to becoming lumber, cropland, grazing land. Lumber, cropland, grazing land, you can monetize, you can sell. Wilderness, not so much. And that's where the expansion comes in. Well, look at all this useless wilderness, valueless wilderness. Let's take it and turn it into money, right? That's the expansion of the cancer. So I just wanted to give those examples to kind of round out the context. Okay.
Well, one other prime example is we just, while you're giving a list of things like that or examples, Arctic is melting from underneath us, and we all know what that means. Even the president of Finland said, if we lose the Arctic, we lose the planet. Yet our leaders seem to see it as an opportunity to expand oil and gas exploration and precious minerals in the lands that will become ice-free and in the oceans that will become ice-free. They're seeing profit where doom is on our doorstep. That just gives you an example of how the cancer has eaten even into our politics, because at the core of politics now is money as well. It's not spirituality as they feign to say it is. Because when a politician comes on and says, and starts going on about how religious and spiritual and you know, believer in God and all that, you can be damn sure the rest of us coming out of his mouth is bullshit as well. Sorry, no, for saying that, like, but that at the end of the day, you don't have to go around and explain to people that you're a good person. I'm a firm believer of living by example. So you only have to go around and show by your example that you're a good person, not preach that you are, because you go to church every day or every Sunday with your family and get on with your political work then during the week, decimating the planet. That's hypocrisy. So what I'm saying is that at the core of politics now, unfortunately, is money as well, in the majority of countries anyway. And so, yeah, I don't know where I'm going with that other than to say, like, you know, that is a prime example of how that cancer has eaten into our core values, that our leaders actually see that there's profit in our doom, or almost immediate doom if the Arctic goes within a couple of years. And yet they still see profit in it. Joe Biden gave a speech in Ireland there today to mark the 25th anniversary of the Good Friday Peace Accord. The fact that Ireland have had peace in the country now for 25 years, because we saw that hundreds of years of war, and they say 40 years of war in the north, yeah, but we colonized for hundreds of years. But the point is, at the end of the day, we saw as a people that the only way to bring about peace is not with the gun and not with the bomb, is with the, coming to the table and sitting down and talking and settling our differences. And that's how the peace was brought about, and we hope that that's how the peace will remain. Yet Joe Biden's speech was about how proud we should be of that, and yet then also reminding us that we have to be loyal and that we're not really neutral when it comes to backing up your loyalties, when he was reminding us of the Ukraine war. And it's terrible what's going on there. But I still maintain that Ireland is respected around the world for the fact that we're neutral, for the fact that we're such good caregivers, peacekeepers, and for all that type of work that we do, for the fact that we've, yes, donated millions, but all in medical aid and charitable aid. We didn't donate the money for weapons to create more war and death and maiming people and killing women and children, innocent people. And we don't want to do that in the future either. You know what I mean? So we're not going to listen to politicians who are trying to come along and profess on one hand that they're spiritual people and then ask us on the other hand to commit to a war and kill others. You know what I'm saying? So that's where all our priorities are all mixed up. And I hope that, the likes of ourselves, good people like ourselves, good people that, of all the groups that we're trying to get to come together, because only together with unity can we all be that shining example And through that example of good on a mass scale will then reverse that cancerous core that's in the rest of them. Yeah, it might take a long time to get to the 1% at the bottom, but you'll get to the bigger, larger portion first. You know what I mean? Those that still have the hunger for the spiritual core. But unfortunately, you're born into the set of circumstances that enslaves them to the poisonous core that they have to deal with now. Don't know if that made any sense, but I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. And your final words there, you know, make me think about myself. And this is part of what kept me up late last night was, you know, the realization that part of me is enslaved by this system where I'm addicted to the material and seeking to increase my own wealth. And in parallel with my doing as much good in the world as I possibly can. So my own mind and heart are split. My own core is kind of a hybrid core between the cancerous expansion, because whenever I try to make money, what is that doing? It's taking money from the rest of the world and therefore putting pressure on the rest of the world to chop down more trees so that it can make up for whatever I've taken from it. You see what I'm saying? Or if I buy lumber at the lumber yard to build a bigger house, well, that's putting pressure on, you know, the lumber suppliers to go chop down more trees so they can make more money and feed their families. Anyway, you get what I'm saying there. But it affects us all. And you know,
I would say that the difference there, Jamin, with you and the difference with those that are out there that have money and are there that are still in that rat race trying to expand and grow and make more of their money. The difference is that you've stopped and paused in your life to think, and you got out of that rat race. So you know what I mean? And now you're putting what money you have, you've put it to good use with good intentions, with a spiritual core in your, you know what I mean, in your heart. You have a spiritual core in your heart. You're a good intentioned soul as far as I'm concerned. And so you've now dedicated your life to doing the right thing, what you believe to be the right thing to save life on earth, and, you know, do what you can within your power. So, you know, it doesn't matter. I know, like, you're probably balancing yourself out then with wealth or whatever. It makes no difference whether a person has money or hasn't money. As you said, even the poor person is striving to make more, even if it's for survival. It doesn't matter. The essence that they're born into the system, they have to fucking make money, like, to survive, and then they want to try and make more to be, you know, have a little bit of better quality of life. And then when they get a little bit of better quality of life, they look at the person above them and say, I want what he has. And then they want what he has. And then before they realize it, they want what the 1% has, which is what the majority of people are now in the world, because they're being brainwashed into believing that what the 1% have is what we all should strive for. They've become almost idolized, almost like godlike in society and on social media and everything else. And it's like, this is what your children are being taught to idolize and to attain, you know, strive towards. These 1%ers that must be really intelligent and important people if they have all that money, you know, because money, again, as you said, is at the core. The greed is at the core. And this is the way they put it into our children's minds. We're being programmed to idolize these people and forget our true core spiritual values. We need to reverse that by example, because you can't tell a person to change. You can only inspire them by example. And you've started to make that change, and lots of everybody that we work with, like that we come together with in conversation, that regardless of what profession they're in or what culture they are or where they come from in the planet, we all have the same path. We're all on the same path. Like, we're all, regardless of how we, like, as I said there, like, regardless of whether you're concerned with the Arctic, whether you're concerned with the, you know, the oceans. It doesn't matter where you're coming from. You're trying to do the right thing as you see it, or where you're called to do the right thing. And there's plenty of those people out there. You know what I mean? The cancer hasn't gotten to all of us, is what I'm saying. Like, but it's, you know, it's catching up on all of us. So we need to put our socks up. I'm going to shut up because I'm talking too much.
No, you're not
No.
talking too much. But I'm actually just going to pause just for a moment, just because I got to check something here real quick. I'll be right back, and then we can continue. But I love what you're saying, James. I'll be right back. And Marco, I know you got stuff to say. Just if you can hold it for just a moment.
There we go. No, I was just saying that James can never talk too much. You shouldn't worry about that. Even if he rambles, it sounds good.
Oh goodness, exactly. Couldn't agree more. And you know, but here's the thing, James, I appreciate the kind words you've said about me. I'm just I'm standing firm in that I'm still addicted to money, and I'm still addicted to the cancerous core to a degree, right? And I think that, you know, probably most people are addicted to a degree. And building off one of the things you said, I'm reminded of the words of one of my billionaire friends, which is that the biggest advantage of being rich is that people think you're smart. So it has this huge halo effect, and that impacts, you know, people getting sexual partners, life partners, whatever. It influences all kinds of things: business opportunities, job opportunities, friends, invitations, all kinds of stuff is influenced by this halo effect of being rich, right? Of having money. And so all that reinforces the core value, the core imperative, which is to expand your wealth. If you're not expanding your wealth, you're being really stupid, and you're missing out, and you're leaving money on the table, and you're, you know, yada, 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 right? All that narrative, all that culture that emanates from the core. The politics emanates from the core, the economics, the culture, and ultimately our actions, what we do with our time, what we do with our focus. So it really, truly is a cancer. And so, you know, as context for INC23, most of the people there, if not all, are painfully aware of all this, and are therefore saying, hey, how do we transform our politics? Well, the first step to transforming our politics is transforming the core. Well, how do we transform the core? Really, it's all holistic. There needs to be simultaneous and holistic transformation of the core: politics, economics, culture, and ultimately action, right? And one of those core transformations is citizens' assemblies, which is what we're doing with the Block Party and this meeting right now. We're coming together to talk about it. It was what the conference was all about. So, you know, one of the first steps is getting together and talking about it. That's what we're doing now. That's what we'll do tomorrow with the Block Party. That's what we did at the conference. And so anyway, really appreciate all this conversation and context. And with that, I'm complete. I'm going to go on mute, pass the feather. Carry on, folks. Any other comments, questions? Take your time.
I think it's interesting the way you put that about, you know, people assuming you're rich, or if you're rich, assume you're intelligent. I found kind of an inverse effect, not exactly inverse effect of that, but something similar. It's like if you meet like a new group of people, and you like at some event, you get in a conversation, and it's like they start to ask questions about what you do. And if you talk about anything about solar radiation management or global warming or any of those things, then the question comes, well, what do you do? And if you're not telling them something that comes with initials after it, then they want to know why, like there's something wrong with you, because if you're smart, you should be rich too. And when they find you smart and not rich, they think there's something wrong with you. I don't know if you probably have not noticed that, or maybe you have. But yeah, it's weird. The only reason I bring it up is that it has to do with getting the message across to people in a way that they believe it. When you don't, we've all had this where it's like, well, if everything you say is true, then why am I not hearing it from somebody more important than you, somebody with initials behind their name, or a government title? And when you're trying to relate the dire shape humanity is in, when you can have settings like it is, again, sunny, beautiful day here in Vancouver, and people are out and enjoying the moderate weather. And nobody thinks about how bad it is until the town burns to the ground in 15 minutes. Or the skies open up with, flooding from the atmospheric rivers that wiped away all the railroad and highway infrastructure, separated part of British Columbia from the rest. For even emergency crews took days to get past. So the blending we're doing now of being with credentialed people is important. That's part of the collective intelligence that's been working for us. And I'm really anxious to get more in depth on INC23 too when we get to that, because I'm not fully grasping how that tool is going to work for us. I think that kind of, it was a little rambling, but I hope I have come across with hope and more than hope, where a plan is coming together. The collective intelligence is working. This, we're using the multi-pronged approach to this now. It's like we all got to just get in our niche. Some of us have to get in our niche in order, we got to say it like that to make us feel better about it. But we all just got to find our part to play and play it. And when there's a spot there and we need somebody to play that spot and they're not here, we just keep doing what we do until they show up, because they will show up. And with that, I'm complete right now.
Good stuff, Marco. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Well, I'm also complete in terms of the context. Any other comments or questions before we shift gears onto the summary itself?
I don't know. I just may have this has no bearing on it, maybe, but I just say that I don't think you should be so hard on yourself, like saying that you're still addicted to money, like, because as I said, you're not driven by it anymore. You're driven by trying to do the right thing to save the planet, which means your core has changed there. Like you're not driven by the insatiable appetite for money. You're driven by your core spirituality, your core belief in that you need to do the right thing now, like, which is save, heal, and transform life on earth, and do whatever it is in your power to do that. So I think you're just being a little hard. Yeah, I know you listed out a lot of things that you can get if you're wealthy. I use when I said, like, most people think when people are the one look at the 1%, they think they must be intelligent. Well, that's because those people are putting that out there, to that beliefs out there into society, so that people will look up to them, is what I was saying. Like, but those all the things that you listed, like, you get lots of friends and contacts and blah. Yeah, that's true. Like, if you're wealthy, but it's equally true if you're poor. You know what I mean? Because, like, I have to have money, like, so I'm born into a system where money is necessary, like, so yeah, I still have to have my money to do me for the week, but I have enough to do what I need to do with, and that's grand for me. But you have what you have to do with, and you have what you have, and you're doing what you can with it, and you're doing it for the right reasons. So all those other things that you listed, yeah, you can have them if you're poor too, you know what I mean? As my father said, you can travel the world on manners alone. And, I know that to be true myself from experience. Like, it doesn't take a lot to be nice, to have some manners and respect for a person, and a friendly, conversation. And you can travel the world on that alone, because when you are nice to a person, respectful to a person, have, respect and, for the person, you usually get that reciprocated, like, and that's all we're talking about, is by living by example, like. So on a global scale, then you have to do societal example. So what we're talking about here, is all of us, all of the different individual groups, all the groups that met at the independent gathering there, all those different people that are there from different aspects, they're all on the same path to do the right thing. So we need, all of those groups need to be working together, connected, so that they all fit in, like, hands into a glove. All the different fingers, the different areas that need to, wherever there's plenty needs to be tackled in the planet, let's put it that way. Like, and everybody has their different little finger in something. So we need to come together, you know what I mean, and put our hands in the gloves and get down to work, like. So, and then by that example, push out and root out the cancer or core of the mainstream. You know what I mean? In other words, like, there's only one way you can fight. You could fight fire with fire, or you know what I mean? So, you can fight it with water. But I'm talking about example is the best way. And there's plenty of good people on the planet, and they only have to come together and show that their goodness in collective action, which is the example that's desperately needed to actually get rid of the cancer. You know what I mean? Hate breeds cancer, love will get rid of it. That's what I'm saying.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you, James.
I guess I have 2 cents on the money end of it again. Is, Christopher and I have been talking about it. We both have had similar problems with money. Each could have made money a few different times where we just couldn't feel good about the money. It's just not, like, not ethically sourced in the way that, you know, a corporation would have no problem taking the money, you know, and making a huge profit. And since they've already got most of the markets of anything that anybody needs covered, you know, to be independent and small, you don't, you're at a disadvantage right from the start because of your lack of volume discount on whatever you produce. You know, all the corporations have those numbers crunched because they're taking advantage of their employees, you know, all the way around. But the thought is coming in around to where, well, you know what? If you can just get the formula, you can down to where there are companies, you know, LLCs is what we're designed for, that operate as their first order of being successful is, are they providing service to the community? And if they run at break even, as long as they're paying their employees properly, then this is the type of business we should have. So I just are on this track of, in order to avoid the bad effect of money, is something you have to do on a large enough scale that you can do it with the volume discounts, but then pass that on to the people. So that there is no exceptionally wealthy person in the thing, just, you know, the evening out. And it can be done without government squashing it. As long as you know, you pay your taxes, and it's such a small window, but it's what, you know, one of the things we have to do is start more businesses that operate for social good first. And I'm thinking with Inc., maybe there's some way to, you know, work on legislation that'll get those things, make those more types of business easier to go. So that's kind of what I'm hoping to see how Inc. will work in the big picture here. And with that, I got rambling. I don't think I quite made my point, but I'm complete for now. I thought I saw a hand up, but now it's gone.
Oh yeah, that was me. I raised my hand there. Yeah. Yeah, and that actually gets to back to the question of the core. So for example, you know, the B corporations that are certified B, they are for the most part incrementally better than the average, but most of those are still laser focused, bottom line, make profit. Just make the profit while being a little better in terms of taking care of your employees, or recycling, or contaminating a bit less, right? But I don't see the B corporations as radical enough in terms of this radical transformation of the core to actually saving, healing, and transforming life on Earth. It's just being a little better. And with that in mind, for the radical transformation, we created the standard of certified compassionate companies that go all the way rather than just part way. And but all this needs to be really developed and explored and ultimately designed in terms of, you know, complete holistic standards for a complete thorough transformation from, you know, the cancerous core to a healing core. But anyway, these are all deep conversations we can have. I'm just going to pause for a second. All right, beautiful. Well, with all that, I think we're good on the context for INC23. Please stay tuned for a bit more of a detailed summary on INC23. And then please also check out the welcome and intro video to Block Party 148, happening tomorrow, April 14th. Thanks so much, everyone, for your great participation. Marco, James, everyone. And we'll see you on the next recording. Thanks, everybody.